We continue now at the top of Daf Yomi Gemara from Meseches Eruvin. This is Eruvin Daf 14a. The Mishnah had said that the korah needs to be a tefach wide in order to be able to hold in a riach, which is a tefach and a half. So the Gemara asks, tefach, it only needs to be a tefach wide, tefach umechzabah. It should need a tefach and a half in order to hold this ariach. So the Gemara says, kevan derochav lekabel tefach, since it's a tefach wide, idoch chatzi tefach, the other half a tefach, malbin le betina, you can plaster it with mud, mashu mehai gisu, a little on each side, v'kaima, and then you can hold up this ariach. Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna. Rabba bar Rav Huna says, Korah she'amru tzricha shtei bria kedei lekabel ariach. The korah itself needs to be strong enough to hold up this ariach, this brick. Umamide korah, but that which is holding up the korah, let's say you have the korah on top of poles, einon tzrichan shiu brian kedei lekabel korah variach. Those poles do not need to be strong enough to hold the korah and the ariach. Rashi says, Umamide hakorah minicha gabe yesedos. Again, if you put it on top of poles, pegs, ein tzrichan shiu brian lekabel korah variach. They don't need to be so strong to hold up both the korah and the ariach. Ela lekabel korah levad, as long as they're strong enough to hold up the korah. Dehalo yahavi ariach Allah, because you're not actually putting an ariach, you're not actually putting a briach, a brick on top of the korah. Uva korah hu debinan kvias. Only the korah needs to be set. Kihechi to have a heker malia, so it's a heker. Aval mamidel otali hakera bididhu. The things holding up the korah, they don't create the heker, so there's no need for them to actually be so strong. That's the opinion of Rabbi Rav Huna. Rav Chisda, Amar Rav Chisda says, Echad zeh v'echad zeh tzrichen sheyu brian kedei lekabel korah v'ariach. No, it needs to be strong enough to hold up a korah and an ariach. Rashi says, Echad zeh v'echad zeh korah b'inon brios de ariach. The korah needs to be strong enough to hold up the ariach, to hold the brick. Umamideh bo brios to korah v'ariach. And those holding up the korah, they obviously need to be strong enough to hold the korah and the ariach, because again, it has to not just in theory, but it has to actually be strong enough to hold up, however you set this up, it has to be strong enough to hold the korah and the ariach. Gemara continues, Amar Rav Sheshes says, Hiniach korah al gabe mavui. Let's say a person puts a korah on top of a mavui, uparas alem machzelas, and then he takes a net and he spreads it over. Rashi says here, machzelas lios mechitza liyafos koch hetero. He wants to take this mat, this netting, and he wants to spread it from the korah down, and that he thinks that's going to improve the mechitza. However, v'higbiyam min akarka shlosha, but it doesn't reach the ground, and it's 3 tvachim or more off the ground. So Rav Shesha says, korah ein kan, mechitza ein kan. It's not a good korah, and it's not a good mechitza. So you've actually made it worse. Korah ein kan d'ha mechitza mechitza. It's not considered a good korah because it's being covered up by the mechitza. D'ha mechitza, rather, it's being covered up. Mechitza ein kan, and it's not considered a good mechitza. D'ha v'lo mechitza shagadim boken, but because since the mechitza is 3 tvachim or more off the ground, that's considered a mechitza that the goats can walk right under, and that's not a good mechitza either. So you've actually made everything worse. Taner Rabbanu, we learn in the Brisa, korah hayotze mikosel zeh ve'ena nogas bekosel zeh. Let's say the korah comes out from one wall of the mavui, but it doesn't touch the other wall of the mavui. V'chein shtei koros achas yotze mikosel zeh v'achas yotze mikosel zeh. Let's say you have 2 koros, 2 beams. One comes out of one wall, the other out of the other wall. Ve'ena nogo zubazu, and they don't touch one another. So pachos mishlosha, if they're less than 3 tvachim apart from one another, ein tzarich lavi korah acher, so you don't need to bring another beam. Shalosha tzarich lahavi korah acher, but if they're 3 tvachim or more apart from each other, you need to bring another beam. That is the halach of lavud. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, Pachas midalad ein tzarich lavi korah acheres. If it's less than 4 tvachim away from each other, you don't need another beam. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel holds that less than 4 tvachim is lavud, as opposed to the Tanakh say less than 3 tvachim is lavud. Arba, but if it is 4 tvachim or more away from each other, tzarich lavi korah acheres, according to Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, you need to bring another korah. V'chein beis koros hamis aimos, and let's say you have 2 koros, one next to the other, like twins, so they're running parallel. Lo bezu kedei lekabel ariach, v'lo bezu kedei lekabel ariach. Neither one on its own has enough to hold up the ariach, the brick. In mekablos ariach l'rach v'tefach, if combined, they can hold up the ariach at a width of a tefach. Ein tzarich lavi korah acher, so you don't need to bring another korah. There's a little bit of a debate in the Rishonim exactly how to explain this, but it seems to be basically that they're within the total space between them. If there's a little gap between them, and the total space, if you measure from one end to the other, would seem to be a tefach. Again, v'im lav tzarich lavi korah acher. If they're not tefach wide combined, then you're going to have to bring another korah. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel omer im mekabelas ariach la'arko shlosha ein tzarich lavi korah acher. According to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, they can even be They can even be distance apart that they can hold the length of the ariach. The length of the ariach would be 3 tvachim. So as long as they're not more than 3 tvachim apart, that's good enough because they can hold up the ariach by its length. Again, the Rishonim discuss in that case how thick do they have to be. Many Rishonim say in that case each one should at least be a half a tefach wide, so that the total is going to be a tefach. V'im lav tzarich lavi korah acheres. And if not, you need to bring another beam. Let's say you have a situation where one of the beams is a little higher than the other, so they're not right next to each other parallel. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Omer, Rowan, Esaliona, Kilu Hilamata, Vesatachtona, Kilu Hilamala. You're allowed to apply the principle of Rowan, and we can view it as if the upper one is a little lower, the lower one's a little higher, make it as if they're parallel. The only condition is that the higher one can't be more than 20 amos off the ground. As we've said, the Korah cannot be more than 20 amos off the ground, and the lower one can't be less than 10 tvachim off the ground, again, because that's the same halacha, has to be at least 10 tvachim high. Amar Abaya now says, to explain Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, he says, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda savar la kavu bechadu palagala bechadu. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda agrees with his father Rabbi Yehuda in one halacha, but disagrees in the other. Savar la kavu bechadu de islay Rowan. He holds like his father. His father was the one who applied the halacha of Rowan. That was in the Mishnah on the previous Amud. Rabbi Yehuda said that, let's say you have a korah that's made out of straw, you can look at it as if it's made out of metal, as if it's strong enough. But he argues with him on one point, because Rabbi Yehuda's position was a korah is allowed to be higher than 20 amos off the ground. For Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, savar besochaf in lamal michaf lo. But Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda holds a korah cannot be, it has to be within 20 amos from the ground, can't be higher than 20 amos. Rabbi Yehuda omer rachva afapi she'ena bria. Again, this is the same Rabbi Yehuda we just mentioned. Rabbi Yehuda holds that if it's wide enough, even if it's not really strong enough to hold in a riach, we apply the principle of Rowan, and that's good enough. So Masni lo Rav Yehuda l'chia barav kame de Rav. Rav Yehuda taught this Mishnah to Chia barav in front of Rav, and he had the text as follows: Rachva afal pisha in a bria. If it's wide enough, even though it's not actually strong enough, that's the text that we actually have in the Mishnah. So Amar Le, so Rav said, Asniya Rachva Uberia. You should change the text that it has to be wide enough and strong enough. Gemara says, Vam Rabbi Loi Amar Rav. What are you talking about? Rabbi Loi quoted the same Rav, the very same Rav, who says Rachva Arba, that if it's 4 tvachim, Afa Bisha Ein Bria. It does not have to be strong enough as long as it has the width of 4 tvachim. So the Gemara for that answers Rachva Arba Shani. It's different when it's 4 tvachim wide. When it's 4 tvachim wide, that is so wide that even Rav agrees it doesn't actually need to be strong enough to hold up the ariach. Haisa shel kash v'chulu. Again, then it said that if it's made out of straw, you can apply this principle of Rowan as if it's made out of metal. The Gemara says, "My kamash molan." What is this line in the Mishnah teaching us? Damrin on Rowan, that we say the principle of Rowan. Hainu hach. You already just told us in the Mishnah that you apply the principle of Rowan. What are you adding when you just say an example of the case? Rashi says, "Hainu hach the bereisha rachva afa pisha ein bria." It says in the beginning of the Mishnah, if it's wide, even though it's not strong enough. Why do you then have to give an example that if it's made out of straw, which is not strong enough, you view it as if it's metal? That seems like superfluous. You're not really adding anything to the statement you made before. So the Gemara says, no, Rashi explains this to mean, I might have thought that you only apply the principle of Rowan to a species which at least in theory can hold up the ariach. So for example, Rashi says wood. Let's say you have a very thin piece of wood, it can't hold a brick. But wood in general, in some instances, can be strong enough to hold up a brick. So there we would say Rowan. But if you have straw, which in no instance can hold up a brick, maybe we don't apply the principle of Rowan and we say, oh, we look at this straw as if it's metal. Maybe we don't say that. Kamash Molon. So the Mishnah is teaching us, no, even in a situation of straw, even in a situation where the min itself could never hold up in a riach, we still apply this principle. And then the Mishnah said, Akuma Rowan Osaki Lipshuta. Let's say you have a korah which is bent, you can view it as if it is straight. Gemara says, Pshita, that's obvious. The Gemara says, no, it's not obvious. Kamash Malon Kid Rabbi Zera, because it teaches us the chidushim of Rabbi Zera. Because Rabbi Zera said, let's say you have the korah within the mavoi, but it bends out of the mavoi. Or let's say it's within 20 amos from the ground, but it bends upwards above 20 amos. Or or let's say it's too small. So let's say the korah itself is above 10 tefachim from the ground, but it bends below 10 tefachim of the ground. Rowan kol she'ilu yinata lakamamisa. So we apply the principle of Rowan as follows. If we would remove the area which is bent, ve'ein bein zelo zeh shlosha, and then between the other areas that are remaining, there's not more than 3 tvachim of space, so you can apply lava to connect it. Ein tzarech lavi korah acheres, you don't need to bring another korah. Ve'im lav tzarech lavi korah acheres. If not, you need to bring another korah. So that's the chiddush of the Mishnah of applying Rowan. So the Gemara says, Hanami pshitahi. But isn't that also obvious? Because that's just applying the same principle of Rowan, which we've been applying all along. So the Gemara says, no, it's not so obvious. The case where it bends out of the mavoi, that's actually a chiddush. Why? Because if part of this korah bends out of the mavoi, people might get drawn after it and actually walk and carry outside the mavoi. They're not going to realize that the korah is bending out of the mavoi. They're just going to see the korah and think they can walk up until the korah. So kamash malon. So it's teaching us that we're not afraid of that. If it bends out of the mavoi, we're not afraid people will be drawn after the korah, and it's perfectly fine to say Rowan to eliminate the part that bent out, and as long as there's less than 3 tvachim between the other parts of the korah, you are okay. The Gemara continues at the 2 dots, quoting the Mishnah, Agula Rowan osa kilu mirubas. If the korah is round, we look at it as if it is square. So the Gemara asks, Hasulamli, what do we need this for? This is the same halacha of Rowan. Even though this pole is round, we view it as long as we can, in theory, carve out a korah, a beam, which is a tefach wide, and can hold a brick. That's good enough. So the Gemara says, Seifet strichale. We need it for what we say at the end of the Mishnah, that kol sheyesh behekefo gimel tvachim, that if the circumference of this round pole is 3 tvachim, then we know yesh bo rachav tefach, that it is a tefach wide. In other words, what the Mishnah is teaching us is that in general, the circumference of a circle is going to be 3 times the diameter of that circle. That's basically what we call pi. Pi times the diameter, pi, which is about 3, times the diameter, is going to be the circumference. So the Gemara says, Minohani mili. How do we know that this is the case? How do we know that the circumference is 3 times the diameter of a circle? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Kros, or Rabbi Yochanan says, because it says in the pasuk, Vayasas hayam mutzak eser ba'ama misvaso at svaso, that this is talking about the Yam Shel Shlomo, the pool that Shlomo HaMelech made in the Beis HaMikdash. It was 10 amos from one end to the other. The diameter was 10 amos. Ogol Saviv, and it was round. V'chomesh ba'ama komaso was 5 amos high. V'kav shloshim ba'ama yosov oso Saviv. And it had a circumference of 30 amos. So therefore you see that a diameter of 10 amos, circumference of 30 amos, the circumference is 3 times the diameter. So the Gemara says, Vayikos but what about the edges? We're measuring the circumference saviv from the outside of the borders of the pool, but we're measuring the diameter only from one edge on the inside to the other edge on the inside. So it's not exactly 3 times the amount. So the Gemara says, Amar Rapapa says, Svaso svas perach shoshan ksibe. When it came to the border, the edge of this pool, the pasuk says that it was as thin as the petals of a rose. Dichsiv, like it says, v'ovyav tefach. The thickness of this pool was a tefach. Rashi says that's at the bottom. The border of the pool at the bottom was thick like a tefach. However, usvaso kamase kos perach shoshan al payin bas yachal. But as it went up, it got thin, and it was as thin as the petal of a rose on the top. So it's insignificant. So even if you're measuring the circumference from the outside and the diameter from the inside, that's insignificant. Gemara says vayikamashu, but there's still a little bit of a difference. Even though it's not a lot, it should still be considered enough of a difference to mess up the math. Gemara says, Ki kachasha mi gavoy kachasha. Fine. So really, we're measuring the circumference from the inside as well. We're measuring the diameter from the inside, and we're measuring the circumference from the inside of the border of the pool, and everything works out. Gemara continues, Tani Rabbi Chia taught, Yam she'asa Shlomo hayamachzik meyu v'chamishim mikvah tahara. The pool that Shlomo HaMelech made, it held 150 mikvos. If you would take the minimum size of a mikvah and you would put them into this pool could hold 150 mikvos. So the Gemara says, let's do the math. Michti, let us see. Mikvah kama hava arboim sa. How much is a mikvah? It's 40 sa. Kedetanya, as we learned in a brayso. V'rochas, that's besaro. And we'll continue this discussion in the next video on Daf Yodalid Amud Beis.